Welcome to Don't Quote Me on That. One day we will have an intro, but today is not that day. Hi, I'm Elanor,
And I'm Kalina.
and welcome back to Don't Quote Me on That, where I think we have a first for everyone. We're talking about a movie this week, and it's a movie that, if I'm not wrong, we both liked.
Yes, you would be correct.
I I don't think this has happened since we've spoken about Twilight.
I was gonna say it's a movie we both like, and it came out fairly recently, considering the movies
Yeah.
we usually talk about.
Yeah. So this week we're talking about the movie Brooklyn with Saoirse Ronan. And if we did our math correctly, this is our episode closest to St. Patrick's Day. So we wanted to pick something, um, I guess, Irishy.
Yes,
Uh,
not to
it's,
not to lean into stereotypes, but also to lean into stereotypes.
yeah. But it's okay because I'm currently in Ireland as we film this. So I have, like, I'm using my pass this very once to say that this is okay.
I didn't
Anyway.
know you had a pass. I'd
Well,
like
I
to
don't
delve into that a
anymore.
little bit more. Oh, they took it. They immediately revoked it.
Yeah.
Anytime you say I
Um,
have a pass, you lose it. That's how it works.
yeah. But so the movie is based on a book, by a guy with an Irish name that I'm not even going to try.
This is the
Um,
girl who's actively in Ireland. Remember?
yes, but I don't talk to boys, so that's my excuse.
Is it that you don't
Um,
talk to boys, or is it boys don't talk to you?
I don't think that's important, and I don't think that's what we're doing here today.
I mean, boys don't talk to me either, so like I can't. I'm not really. I don't have a place to make
Well,
fun
I
of
mean, the
you.
real answer is that, like, no
No
one
one.
talks to me.
Yeah, we talked to each other when we were there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, if you didn't know, Colleen and I lived in Ireland together for like 3, 4 years.
Yeah, 3.
A nice chunk of time.
Mm-hmm. Went to
Um,
school there, so we're
yes.
not like when we talk, we're not like just making stuff up and pulling it out the air. We promise. I mean, we are a little bit, but like
Well, I am all the time, but we have like a little bit more basis in reality when we talk about Ireland.
yes.
Um, yeah, so Kalina picked this movie. I didn't have any faith that I was going to like it. Well, actually, I thought I would like it because I like Saoirse Ronan.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I've seen her in is SNL, but I like her.
She's got a good vibe.
She does. And she
I think,
was in Little Woman, I think, with that one guy.
yeah, I think this was the first thing I saw her in, and as we get about halfway through this episode, I'm not going to contribute anything helpful anymore, and I think we will all learn why. But I thought this was a great movie, and I thought she was good in it. And now that after rewatching it for this episode, I think she's a good actress.
I have a question. So this movie came out in 2015, early 2015, and then we didn't move to Ireland until I think like
2017.
August September 2017. So did you see this movie for the first time before Ireland, or do you remember?
I don't remember. I want to say it was after, because what happened is my mom was watching it on TV, and I think she had seen it while I was gone, and then she was watching it another day when I had come home. I want to say like 2018, like in the summertime when I was home.
Okay.
So I saw like parts of it the first time.
Okay. I was just curious because I want to put this out now and then never talk about it again. I did cry like a little baby. Um, but I was on my period, and so it's not my fault.
She says that like she doesn't cry all the time. Anyway, I can't blame you. I didn't cry, but like if I were a crier, I would have been there.
Oh. I don't think I've cried at a movie since I was like 12 and watching Raise Your Voice with Hilary Duff, where her brother gets killed in a car accident. So, you know, we're having a great
Moving
job.
quickly on.
Moving quickly on. This movie, I didn't know when it was set, like time period wise.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, it was set in 1951, which I feel like seems late.
Really, I thought it made sense. I actually thought they did a really good job of like setting the scene and the like reminding you they're in New York and the time period without like shoving it in your face. I think one thing I really loved were the costumes.
Yeah.
Like, and I think they dressed Saoirse Ronan very nicely. I loved all of her outfits, but like, there's a couple scenes they just this is getting into what we'll talk about later, but like they just framed them really nicely with New York in the background. I think they did a good job.
Yeah. And Kalina has. You didn't live in New York, but you've been there like more than a
Yeah,
little bit,
I
right?
got a lot of family up there. So
Okay. But no, it was your mom who lived there.
yeah, my mom grew up in New York.
Okay, so Kalina has some connection to New York and some connection to Ireland, yada yada yada.
I'm a worldly
But
woman.
anyway, essentially, the story is that Saoirse Ronan's character Ailish, she lived in Ireland, shockingly, a pretty small town, and her sister arranges for her to immigrate to America,
Mm-hmm.
and she has so much fun. I didn't take any notes because of the tears.
How early did you start crying?
Anyway, I was having a very tough time.
Well, I took notes, so
Okay, good.
go
I
on.
remember, I was thinking that, there's a so Ailish has a job at, like, just a little shop,
Mm-hmm.
and I think she only works Sundays and Saturdays. I liked the energy of the girl. The head of the shop was named Miss Kelly, and people were coming in to get mostly like, I would assume it's stuff for the Sunday meal.
Mm-hmm.
And one girl comes in. I don't remember what she asks for, but Miss Kelly just goes off on her.
Oh yeah,
She was like,
she asked
"Yeah, what do you
shoe
you know,
polish.
you couldn't remember, yeah." And then she's like, she looked down and she's like, "It because it looks like you needed shoe polish yesterday." And I was like,
So you couldn't remember it yesterday.
she's about to give you money. Can you?
Oh yeah, and that one lady came in and there was like a long line and she helped the one lady. Well, she made Ailish help the one lady before everyone else.
Yeah, and the one girl was like, "I was next," and Miss Kelly was like, "Yeah, you still are."
Yeah. I liked the opening of the movie. I don't for the most part for the beginning of the movie up until she I think starts to leave for America. I didn't have much to say other than that I'm homesick but for Ireland, if that makes sense. And I like Irish
Yeah.
accents.
I will be honest. I didn't start crying until the end of the movie, but I I was a little touchy throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, you're just kind of like almost there the whole time. And I also think that was Saoirse Ronan. Obviously, this is from a few years ago, but she looks both older and younger than she is, which I don't know if that's like she's got like a really interesting face in that sense.
She does. Like, you can't quite pin down
Mm-hmm.
her. Not in a bad way. She's very, very pretty, and I like her very much. So Ailish, it's Ailish.
Ailish.
Ailish's sister,
Rose.
I guess, knows a priest in New York, and together, as in the sister and the priest together, they arrange for Ailish to get a visa and a ticket and what is it, a boarding house? Which, like, I don't know how you know a priest and then your sister doesn't know a priest, because I feel like, especially in Ireland, like, that's the church is kind of like a family affair.
Yeah, but if you remember, like, well, I don't remember, but in one of the opening scenes, they're like at church, and she's like, Ailish is like yawning through the service. I don't think she was
Yeah,
too terribly religious.
and a little part of the movie did focus on how the sister was more, I guess, connected or
Yeah.
established, if you will, in their little town. And I think this did a really good job of like, I think we'll touch on this a little bit later in the movie, but kind of throughout the movie it's touched on, is like when Ailish is on the boat, her little buddy, who she doesn't know, her like roommate, I guess,
Yeah.
randomly picked roommate on the boat, tells her that it's really nice to live somewhere where not everyone, what she like, knows your auntie
I
or
wrote
something
it
like
down.
that.
It says, it's nice to talk to people who don't know your auntie. Auntie.
Yes.
Which is true.
And I think, yeah, like the movie does a really nice job of setting up. I don't want to talk like I know what a small town in Ireland is like, but just like the vibes that I'm getting, it I lived in a really small town for a while, and I think in Ireland people are a lot more like reserved, but they're still in everyone's business. So it's a very
I
like,
always say when I always say about when people like ask me about the people in Ireland, I say when they like you, they make you one of their own, but also they won't like
mhm.
they're interested in your life, but they don't push, if that makes sense. They're not very pushy people.
Yeah. Like I don't think it's gonna be like, an American small town where there's a little Facebook group where everybody just puts everyone else's business.
Exactly.
They'll very subtly be in business, in people's business. So like everyone will know everything, but they're not as, I guess,
I think there's an
open.
undercurrent of like caring about people, whereas I think in like an American
Yeah.
small town, it's more like, oh, look at this information I have. Where I
Hmm.
think it's different in Ireland.
But I do think they do a really good um, job of showing it. Um, I've been talking a lot.
Yeah, I don't have those were my thoughts. I agree. I think they did a good job of establishing it without delving
Hmm.
because she's leaving Ireland, so you need to know the background, but also you can't spend too much time on the background because she's leaving.
Yeah, it wouldn't have made sense to like give her whole life story just to ship her off.
Yeah, and I don't know. I didn't have too much to say or like I didn't think too much about the beginning because Eleanor and I have touched on this a lot. Like, and we don't want to get all weepy, but like leaving home is hard. It's something we can relate to, especially when it and like I know she's going Ireland to America, but like we went America to Ireland, so we can.
Hmm.
It's a little bit closer to home for us than most things, and it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to quantify and to put into words unless you've done it. And I think the film does a good job of giving you the essence of it.
Okay, so I had to look this up. It takes about 2 weeks by boat to go from America, or from Cove, which is where she said once that she was leaving from,
Yes.
to the other stupid place,
She lives in Brooklyn. It's the name of the movie.
Brooklyn. Thank you.
It's
Well,
literally the title of the film. Anyway,
look.
moving
Anyway,
on.
the boat scene was really funny. Eilish meets a girl who she was Irish and moved to America and then went back to Ireland for a little visit, and so she kind of gave Eilish some some quick
Advice.
tips.
Hmm.
And then the worst scene in the film happened.
I didn't write any notes about that.
Uh, Basically, she's in. Well, I won't talk about this. Talk about the setup, I guess. She's in the dining hall, I suppose, and she's eating soup. And the waiter comes up and he goes something like, "You're a brave one for eating with the forecast." And like, did no one tell this poor girl about the forecast? Did this waiter just assume that they'd made an announcement and she missed it? Did nobody tell her? Because I don't think anybody told her that the weather was going to be really bad.
No one told her, not clearly, and she can't take a hint because she's in the dining room and there's plates laid out and there's literally no
Nobody
one else
there.
in the room but her, and she's like eating stew or something.
Yeah. And then she gets violently ill,
And then she passes out.
which was fun. Which, like, yeah, I haven't been on a boat in a very, very long time. But like that's not really a place you want to have a full up tummy.
No, I don't. You know, surprisingly, for all my tummy issues, I don't get seasick. I get motion sick in the car though, which is arguably worse because I spend a lot more time in the car.
That is actually really shocking. I figured you'd get seasickness just looking at a boat.
No, I had a job and I had to take a boat to get out to like my post, and I would just dandy. Like maybe for like a prolonged period of time, but like some days the water was choppy and I was fine.
Yeah, like I've been on a couple of cruises and I remember it was only bad like the very first night sleeping and like laying down and having everything move.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't too bad. But like still, it's like a plane. You know, you don't want to eat so much that you're full because if something happens, you're screwed.
Yeah. There's no place to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I hate planes. I love planes,
do,
but also I hate them. I have a love-hate relationship with a plane.
Oh my goodness. When I flew over, because I went home for Christmas, right? When I flew back to Ireland, first of all, my plane was delayed for 3 hours. My second one, actually, to Ireland. And then I was so, like, worked up about that once they fed us on the plane, I couldn't eat because I was too nervous. And then it took me, like, an hour to figure out how to get from terminal to terminal at the Dublin airport. And even though I've done it, like, 50 times. And so I think I got, like, a little pack of, like, chicken tenders that were cold. And I just ate them in a corner because I was so happy to be on solid ground. This is not my finest moment.
No, not at all.
But better than poor little Ailish on the bus. Oh, also, they did film, so the town she's from is called Enniscorthy in Wexford, and they did actually film a majority of the portions set there, right there, which I thought was nice.
That's nice. Yeah.
And now she's in New York.
Yes, and now she's in New York. I real quick, I want to talk about this because I took a took a screenshot. So her like little roommate on the boat was like giving her advice about going through customs, which I don't know. I agree. Going through customs is nerve-wracking. Mm-hmm. You're like, oh my god, if I pack something illegal, even though I packed my own suitcase.
I have a gun in my pocket. I've never touched a gun, but it's in there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I really love when after she goes through customs, Ailish there's this door she walks through, and I really love this shot. It's her walking through the door, and you can kind of see like the lines of people waiting to get to the customs agent. But she's walking through the door, and the door is like it looks like she's entering heaven. Like the door is like there's so much white light coming through it.
Yeah,
it's just beautiful.
I remember thinking, I saw it, and I was like, "That's really pretty," but also. People would definitely be shoving her out of the way to get through the door because those customs agents work fast.
Yeah, there wouldn't have been there's no scenario in which there would only be one person standing at the customs store. But like I think like this was filmed very nicely.
It was, and I also her little friend gave her some advice, and she part of it was think like an American.
I don't know how to do that. I know I have an American passport, but every time I come back to America, I'm so nervous something's going to happen.
Oh my goodness. I had to go through customs coming into America for the very first time this year.
Horrible.
Which I don't know how I managed to not do it for so long, but I did. And they like asked me so many questions. Mm-hmm. The guy was very nice because once you mention Ireland to Americans, they like get a little glassy eyed, but...
I always book my flight so I don't have to go through customs in America. I did it the first time and it was horrible.
Yeah, never again.
No offense to America, but like a little offense.
Yeah. Anyway, she goes to she lives in a boarding house with like I think 3 or 4 other women who were all Irish.
No, I think there's an American in there, that blonde lady.
Yeah, I
either that or she has the weirdest Irish accent ever.
I had so much trouble with the accents in these movies. Like, I don't know what is wrong with me, but the Irish accents I was fine with. When somebody American talked, I was like, that's funky, but I don't know why.
Do you remember one
Um,
time we had a guest lecturer who was American and I spent the entire
and we,
time going, I was like, where is this dude from? He sounds so weird. We had been in Ireland for like a couple months at this point. And I was like,
yeah,
this guy sounds weird, but I
I
can't
couldn't.
figure it out. And at the end, he was like, yeah, I'm from America. And I was like, oh my God, is that what I sound like?
That I do when I work when I come home for the summer, and one of the guys in the shop is Irish. Well, he doesn't work there anymore, but anyway, the first time he spoke to me after I was just off the plane from Ireland, he spoke to me, and I was in America, and I was like, you could be speaking to me in Welsh right now. I don't know why my brain couldn't compute it because I just spent
So
6 months only
confusing.
hearing his oh
Like, to me, an Irish accent sounds more normal than an American accent sometimes. But my favorite thing about going to Ireland is after I've been home for a while, and you're like, usually it's on my plane. Like, if I'm flying
oh
from New York, and like you get off the like, I'm like, let's say I do Fort Lauderdale to New York or whatever, right? And I get off the plane, and I like waiting at my gate for my New York to
and then you
Ireland
hear
flight,
it.
and like you just, it's like the accent just trickles in. There's a couple Irish
Yeah, whoever
people.
I hear, whoever has the first Irish accent that I hear, I'm in love with them for a
Yeah,
good 30
we can
minutes.
get married.
Also,
It's so
I
good.
always know I'm at the right gate because somebody's in a three-stripe tracksuit, and I'm like, yep.
Exact. Oh yeah, it's very easy to make sure you're at the right place. I'm like, okay, where's the accent? The track suit. All right, there we go. We're fine.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Um. Anyway, I do not like the little girls that live with her. They're very catty,
Mhm.
but they're like American catty, so I guess
Mhm.
it's good that they're assimilating.
I thought. I think they had. I don't know. I think they wanted to like. I guess give depth to these background characters without giving them depth. So that's an easy way to do it. I thought they had nice little clips. I thought they were added some humor to everything. You know.
Oh, they were hilarious.
So funny.
I don't ask me any of their names.
No. I did write down a good quote that I liked, which was there's one lady in there. I think she's older and she's like very. She's not like the rest. Not the woman in charge of the boarding house, but one of the people who are in the boarding
Hmm.
house. And she's a little older and she's very religious and she's not like the rest of them. And they were talking about soap or something. And she goes, "Well, soap was good enough for our Lord." And the lady in charge of the boarding house goes, "And what brand of soap did he use? Did the Bible tell you that?" I thought that
And
was
it's sort of
funny.
like, we will not be talking about the Lord's complexion at my dinner
Yeah.
table. But like, that's some out of pocket stuff that Clean and I would get into, unfortunately.
I think if you tune into any conversation Eleanor and I are having between just the two of us, you
It's
would
not great.
be concerned or deeply offended.
Mhm.
Or both at the same time. We're very good.
Um. Also, oh, sorry. This we're going back in time. One other thing that I really liked and I thought was a nice little message. Back on the boat, Eilish was asking her little friend. I don't remember her name. I'm sorry. I'm sure she had a name. About what life is like in America, and she asked how long letters took, and the girl said at first they take a really long time, and then later they take no time at all.
And then did you
Which
start crying then?
it didn't help, but I don't know. I thought it because when you're first away from home, it feels like, especially when you're getting used to a new place and you don't quite have your bearings yet, it feels like you're kind of doing nothing. And then back home, everything's just moving on as
Mm-hmm.
it was. But then once you finally, you know, meet Kalina and start a radio show.
I wrote down something similar. It's a little later. It's after Eilish, sorry, starts working in this like department store, and then like she like goes to get lunch at some diner and stuff, and you can just you basically get a couple scenes of her just being in Brooklyn on her own doing things. And when you go someplace new all alone, it's exhausting at first to be alone all the
Hmm.
time and do all these things. And you do kind of feel like you're missing out, and especially then I feel like it's worse because you wouldn't get news as immediately as we get it now, obviously. But then you get like a package or a letter from home or like just something small, and it's like oh okay, like everything's fine again, for a little bit.
I also liked, I think in the same kind of montage you're talking about, she's doing a voiceover of a letter from her sister, and her sister says, like you could write 200 pages and it wouldn't be enough,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was really sweet. Um,
Like, even when I go home and I, like, or, like, I call my friends here and I'm, like, we haven't talked in, like, even a week or something. I'm, like, or even with Elanor, I'm, like, trying to recap every minute of my day for the last however long it's been since we talked. And you just can't do that. You can never get everything in there.
I think last year sometime, Kalina came to visit me at my house in Arizona. And I picked her up from the airport and we were talking. And then after about 15 minutes, we realized that everything we were saying, we had already said to each other because we talk every day.
Yeah. It's like, you'd be in the middle of the story. I'm like, this kind of sounds a little familiar. Or worse, right? We're telling a story, and then halfway through, I'm like, actually, Elanor, you were there for that story.
Yeah. I think now it's a little bit different because we're not just, because that was still, COVID time. So we were just kind of home and had nothing else to do.
Yeah.
But now, we have some distance. So it's
lives.
refreshing to be able to catch up.
Yeah, but like, and even if I could detail every minute of my day to Elanor, like, it's not this, like, especially Elanor and I used to do every single thing together that was humanly possible. Okay, like, if, like, you could have attached us at the hip and it wouldn't have made a difference in our lives, but it's just not the same. So, like, I could give Elanor a play-by-play of second to second what I did today, but, like, it's not the same as her being in this space with me, you can't like recreate a moment. Anyway, that sounds sad. Oh, and here's what I wrote down. I love the outfits they give her. I think they dressed her so cute. I really like the colors. I think they did a good job of making her, you know how, like, you have to dress someone in colors to make sure they stand out without making it obvious they're standing out? I think they did a good job with that.
They did. And she was usually surrounded by a couple brunettes, so her like light blonde hair really stood out, which I thought was nice. Very pretty. Boarding house. Oh yeah, Kalina mentioned she has a job at a department store and she's very bad at it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the priest that I guess sponsored her, puts her into bookkeeping classes.
Yeah, I wrote down, what is bookkeeping?
It's basically accounting.
Okay.
Keeping track of, like, checkbooks, essentially.
There's a later scene where the guy asked her, what's bookkeeping? I was like, yeah, actually, second on that question. What is it? And she explained. I was surprised when she starts going to bookkeeping classes, because she goes to, like, night school at Brooklyn College. She was the only girl, and, like, I would assume in that time, like, bookkeeping would have been I don't know, to be fair, I didn't know what it was, but, like, it sounded like something, like, traditionally women would do, so.
It is, like, I think, as far as, like, running an office goes, it's a couple steps up a secretary, of like, a secretary, but I would agree, it's, because it's not, like, I guess, frontline, like, with clients work, so, that, yeah.
But then you said accounting, so I could see them being like, men need to handle the numbers. So, like, that makes sense. Not sense, but sense.
She also goes to little Irish dances every week because the girl who runs her boarding house kind of forces everyone to go.
Also, what else is there to do?
But they have fun. And she meets a man, as you always do.
I have, well, right before she meets the man, I have a couple of notes. One,
yes.
I think so she's been going to the things for a while and, like, nothing's happening. She used to go to dances with her sister in Ireland too, and her sister got all the attention. So I think she was just kind of used to being in the background. But then for Christmas, they agreed to help the priest feed homeless Irish people.
Yes.
And then a homeless Irish man gets up and starts singing in Irish, and then I had to take a little break for a little bit. That made me a little sad. Just saying. And then what else? Oh, and then so the very devout lady in the boarding house moves out, and she has, like, this special room that's got its own entrance, and it's the biggest in the basement. So the lady in charge of the boarding house lets Ailish move in there. And then a new girl
She
moves into
kind
the
of,
house,
it's not really she
tells
declares that
her
that's going to
she's
be
moving in
Ailish's
there
new space.
because she says she can trust her. And then a new girl moves in who none of the girls in the house like, which to be fair, she was a little annoying. Anyway, Ailish gets roped into taking the new girl to the dance, and she does, and they're sitting and they're waiting, and no one's dancing with them, and the place is like kind of empty, and the new girl is like, basically complaining about how there's no one there, there's no fellas there, right? And Ailish goes, well, I'm sure after 9 people are going to show up. And the new girl goes, people or fellas? And Ailish goes, I'm sure some of the people will be fellas, which I just thought was hilarious. And I thought she's from, the new girl is from Kivan, I think it is. I don't know. She's from, anyway, she's got an accent. She's got an accent on her. Her Irish accent was fascinating to me. Yes. And they dress Saoirse in this cute little, or Ailish in this cute little brown dress with polka dots. And then she meets the most beautiful man in the whole world, and then I have nothing constructive to offer for the rest of this episode. It's all downhill after this, okay? Because I kind of get distracted by that every time. Thank you.
The actress who plays Dolores, who's the girl that nobody likes, she's actually from Belfast, which is in Northern Ireland.
I love a Belfast accent.
I
love an Irish accent, but like a Belfast accent, not to sound like a... Well, actually, let's not get political. Moving on. I like a Belfast accent. I like Northern Irish accents.
Yes. Also, when they meet, I thought it was very cute. The guy, what's his name? Tony? Of course it's Tony. He's like, can I walk you home? And she was like, yes, but only to get away from her, because I don't want to spend any time with that girl that I don't like that I had to take here.
Yeah, and he was like, okay. I think it's the first thing he walks up there. Ailish had been dancing with this other guy, and the guy straight up just goes, can we dance more later? And then goes to talk to her house, like one of the other girls in the boarding house, just in the middle of dancing. So Tony walks up to Ailish and he goes, are you here with that guy, the one who's teaching you to dance? And Ailish goes, no. And he goes, so what, would you dance with me? And then I get really emo for a little bit. He's so smiley and so polite, and I love him.
He is very, very cute, and they have a cute little romance, and they talk about, I thought it was very funny, she went to go meet his family. He's Italian. This man, he's not like, he's Italian-American.
I have another note about that. I took very detailed notes, because this movie has some of my, regardless of Tony, it has some of my favorite scenes just in any movie I've ever seen. And I like the scene that he's walking her home, and he goes, I have a confession, I'm not Irish. And she goes, yeah, you don't sound Irish. And he tells her how he's Italian, and he just likes Irish girls. And she goes, oh, so was I the only one who would dance with you? And he goes, no. And she goes, oh, so you dance with a load of other Irish girls. And he's like, she's just pulling his leg. And this is one of the scenes where I was like, oh, I think she's a very good actress. I think she is very subtle, and I do think she did a good job. And this is also a scene, throughout the movie, the two of them are framed almost like a picture a lot of the times. I don't know how else to explain it, but I think they put them in the frame very nicely. But this was the first scene where I was like, I think they did a good job of having New York in the background without it being overwhelming, but still reminding you where they are and setting the scene for you. But I think they just looked very nicely in the scene when he's walking home.
They did. It was very, I don't know, it was like romantic but not pushy about it.
Yeah, I felt like the dialogue between them when they first met felt like two people who have known each other for a while. So I think it makes sense that they fall in love, because they immediately have this like repertoire, which it was a word I was trying to spell, and my autocorrect could not help me. It wrote down, I'm pretty sure it wrote down a word in French, because I have a French keyboard on my phone.
I'm pretty sure that's a French word.
I know, but it wrote down another one. I definitely had all the right letter.
I don't think you did. I think you might have had the R and the E and the P. And then
after that it was... There's a T in there. And an I. And I put those in because I was definite that would help. And then the T has disappeared in the word I have here. So, anyway, I can't spell, but that's fine.
Kalina and I are big believers of, do you know what I meant? Okay, then move on.
Yeah. So yeah, when I wrote down the note, I was like, I'll know what that's supposed to say. It's fine.
I thought it was very cute. They, when Ailish goes
I know, that
to
E
meet,
throws you off.
It's because, yeah, it's spelled with an E, and so my brain, yeah. Anyway, uh, she goes to meet Tony's family, and he's got a huge family. First of all, her little housemates have to teach her how to eat spaghetti, which was a weird scene for me. I didn't love that. They were also, like, not nice about it, even though they offered.
It wasn't like she asked for help.
No, she did not.
And then she goes to his house, and his family's like looking at her. They're like, "What are you doing with the spoon? Like,
Yeah.
what is this?"
But the family says something, and basically it turns out that Tony had never talked to her about baseball, even though he loves baseball. I just thought that was kind of funny.
I thought adorable. What I thought was funny, and I think this is the most stereotypical thing in the movie, but I think it worked, was Tony has a lot of brothers, and he's got a young brother named Frankie, and every time Frankie talks, he does that little, like, Italian hand, and I thought that was hilarious. When Tony was describing Frankie,
we hate the Irish.
Yeah, when he was describing Frankie to Eilish before they go in, he goes, "Yeah, he's 8 going on 18."
But it was cute, and they liked her.
There's another scene. He takes her home a lot. Sorry,
yes.
I just love
walks her home.
Thank you. He walks her home. When basically she gets out of night class one time, and he's out there waiting for her. And also, I really liked how they never, like, made it a thing that she was the only girl in her class. Like, when he was waiting for her, he looked a little put off at first that it was just men walking out, and then he saw her, and he just smiled, and everything was fine. But she gets out of class, and he goes, "All I want to do is travel home with you," because if he didn't get to take the train home with her, then he wouldn't get to see her for a couple of days, and he was like, "That's too long." And I just thought they were so pure, but it was very believable. And it reminded me of, there's some poem where at the end of the poem it goes, "Please leave your scarf in my life and come back for it later." And I just, like, basically the idea that we don't have enough time on this earth together, and so every moment, just squeeze every moment you can out with someone. And I was like, they're so cute. Anyway, thanks. But why did they have to name him Tony?
Because he's Italian.
They could have done, like, I know, like, that was the other stereotypical thing in the movie, but that's fine.
I mean, I'm pretty sure his brother was named Maurizio, so
and yeah,
you
and
win
Frankie,
some,
like,
you lose some.
It wasn't much better.
And then something that I was not expecting happened, and it made me sad. Eilish's sister dies, just like straight up out of nowhere, dies.
And it's during one of those, like, letter writing scenes, and earlier I had thought that they kind of felt like an afterthought, because you never saw any scenes from home in Ireland except for in these letter writing bits, so it felt kind of random. Like, I thought it would have been better if they were writing letters and the voiceover was set to things Eilish was doing in New York. I thought that would have made more sense. But then when Rose dies, it makes a lot more sense why we keep going back and seeing her and, you know, seeing little bits of their life. So at first it was, I that was the only thing I thought felt kind of out of place in the film, but then later on it comes together.
Yeah. So yeah, she dies, and there's this scene where Eilish is working at her department store job, and her boss and the priest walk in together, and her face just kind of falls because in no way is a priest coming into your job dressed in all black good news.
No.
And then her kind of uppity boss is like, go, which was also like, oh, like, we already know what happened, but yeah. And then I think the worst part was Eilish asked when the funeral was, and the priest said that it was tomorrow, and then she says they're gonna bury her without me, and then that's when she starts crying. Also, when I started
unrelated, that's just terrifying to me. And like, it's hard now, and we have information so immediately, and I could be here one day and be someplace the next day, and she didn't have that luxury, and it's still hard, you know, if something like that happens. So I can't even imagine. And sometimes when you're away from home, the distance doesn't feel so great. Like, it's like it doesn't even exist. And sometimes it just feels so much further than it actually is. And that's one of those times. The whole scene where she's on the phone with her mom after they bury her sister. She's on the phone with her mom and they're just talking, and it's like logistically we're connected by this thing. We're like speaking to each other right next to each other for all intents and purposes, but like you're miles and miles and miles away at the same time. Mm-hmm. And
it's like,
yeah. One thing I as much as Tony is my dream man, one thing I didn't love is, so he's very supportive, and she takes the next day off work, and he takes her out to see some land that he and his brothers have bought, and he's going to build a house on it. And he's like, oh, what I'm asking is, do you want to come live in Long Island with me? Basically, he's going to build a house for the two of them. And then he asks her, I think she like shows up at his house in the middle of the night, and they go for a walk, and he asks her to marry him before she leaves to go home. And she's like, oh, but isn't a promise enough? If I promise to marry you, isn't that enough? And he was like, yeah, will you marry me? And I didn't like that he never answered it, and that he was like, if you can promise to marry me, then you should just marry me. I didn't like that argument at all. Like,
yeah, she didn't seem like super enthused.
Yeah, and like her sister just died, and like they had a whole thing about like him saying I love you first, and she wasn't quite ready for it, and then she decided she was, and she did love him. So like I just, him being pushy, I didn't like, especially considering the timing. Like if she was going home just for a random visit, I think that would make sense. But she's going home to go see her mother, who's now all alone because her sister's dead and she's across the ocean. And she was like, yeah, I guess I'll marry you. It's like, it's not the kind of enthusiasm.
Yeah. We should also note that Ailish's father, her mother's husband, obviously, died like years before the movie started. Mm-hmm. So now her mother was like really, truly all alone.
Yeah.
But they do get married.
Yeah, they go to the courthouse. They do
not tell anyone.
My thing is, they got all dressed up, and no one in his family and like no one at her boarding house was like, what are you doing? Because like he was wearing a suit, and this man has worn like, I'm pretty sure the same jacket for the whole movie up to this point.
Well, look, she had her own entrance to her apartment, and he walks really fast.
Oh, okay. Solved. Perfect. Thank you.
Maybe he said he was going to take her for a nice dinner before she had to go.
Also, every Irish person knows each other, okay? Just every Irish person in the world. They went to the courthouse, and he's so cute. He there's this little kid playing with the ball, so he goes and plays baseball with the kid. And the kid's dad walks up to him, and the dad is Irish. And Tony tells the dad where Ailish is from, and the guy's like, oh, my wife has family there. And I was like, what are the chances? So we decided to get married on this random day to know no one. And we find someone we might know. But also, that's my dream wedding.
Yeah, because they're Irish, the chances are like 99%.
Yeah. But I want to get married and have just no one know.
Yeah, I was thinking about Kalina the whole time. I was like, this is something Kalina would do. Kalina would get married.
You see why I like this movie?
10 years later, be like, oh yeah.
Get married. I was talking about that with my friend, because I was like, someone we know was like posting their, like, it was like 3 posts in one day about their boyfriend. Which, like, fine, if that's what you do, go on. But, like, I was like, my partner is going to get 1 post. It will be on the day we get married. And then I will never mention them again.
Yeah, like, if we travel and you take a picture of me, I might say that you took it.
Yeah, I might tag you in the corner. Mm-hmm. But that's it.
That said, I was thinking the other day, I think Kalina and I have the most pictures together than I do with any of my other friends. But Kalina and I have like 6 pictures together.
Oh yeah, Elanor and I are obviously not physically together, and I'm trying to like if I try to make like a TikTok for us, I've been reusing the same thing. I'm like, every time I scroll through my camera roll, I'm like, nope, I used that. Nope, use that. And like we need to get together just for the sake of me recording as many videos of you as possible.
And then I was thinking, I have one friend, I don't think we have any photo. Like, I've known this kid for like, God, since I started high school. So, like 8-9 years. absolutely no photos together.
There's no proof you
No
know each other.
proof that we've ever been in the same room. One of my other friends who I've known for over a decade, we have 2 photos together. One was at our high school graduation with a bunch of other people. And another one he took of me while I was driving to send to my mom to prove that I was still alive. And I do not look good. And that's it. So, like, Kalina and I have the most proof, but, like, not a lot.
Also, I think we have, and, like, some of the photos we have is not even, like, we took, it's, like, we were at, like Thanksgiving dinner and the school took a photo of us. Oh, we're in the background of something.
Our school has more photos of Kalina and I than Kalina and I do.
Oh, yeah, if you look at the study abroad brochure from Mary Immaculate College, I think that's got, like, 4 photos of us. That's the most you find in one time. And we don't look great, okay? We're like, come study at Mary I.
Hey, we look great. We
look like good students.
Yeah.
Just like, I wouldn't use it for like
Kalina and I don't look like we know each other when we take a picture together.
No, we look like we look like what, like, in the brochure it works, because it looks like we just got together for a school event, and they were like, diversity, go. You see, actually, I'm not going to make that joke. It's a good joke, but I'm not going to make it.
Anyway, they get married. Ailish goes back to her mom's house in Enniscorthy. And this is when I started getting really emotional, and I know Kalina's already been ruined by Tony. So I don't know how great the last couple minutes of this are going to be. But essentially what happens is she, because she got her little certification for bookkeeping, she takes her sister's job, because that's what her sister did. And so she has a job, and she's like, look, I'm only here for a month. I'll help you, but that's it. And they're like, okay.
We'll see.
And then one of her friends from home had gotten married, or is about to get married, and tries to set her up with one of her fiance's friends. And so she has, a boy. They don't do anything, but they're friendly, and it's very obvious that the friend is trying to get them to date. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody knows that she's married. And essentially what happens is she kind of is reabsorbed back into where she left. And it's like, this is what could have happened if she never left, even though, like, not really, because she was kind of taking her sister's place, but, like, you can't think about that too hard. And it's very sad because Kalina's turn.
I was mostly annoyed for this part of the movie because I thought she was being a baddie girl, and I don't know why you would ever want to hurt a as wonderful as Tony, personally speaking. Like, he was writing her letters, and I think he had said he'd written her 5 letters, and she'd only answered 1. But also, at the same time, being home is overwhelming. It's like, you're home, and you're like, why did I leave? And I could stay here forever, and this is so great and so wonderful, and all these people care about me, and all these things and all these opportunities, and then you wake up one morning and you're like, actually, this is horrible, I need to leave. They're not like horrible, but like you wake up here one morning and you're like, yeah, this is not home anymore. It's not the same.
Yeah, I don't know if Kalina experiences this, but I spend not like a big portion, but a portion of my time in Ireland being homesick for home, and then I spend a bigger portion of my time at home being homesick for Ireland. And it's just it's like whiplash almost. Yeah. And it's very confusing.
It's gotten, for me, I don't think I go home as often as Elanor. Like, Elanor goes home for Christmas and stuff, and I don't go home as often, and I'll be going home less now. So I used to feel bad because, and like, not to say I don't get homesick, but I get homesick a lot less. I more just miss my folks, but like, I don't, like, being homesick and missing your family are different. But I miss my family, but I feel really bad because I'll go home. This happened to me when I first went home for COVID, because of COVID. I go home and I miss my friends and like my quote unquote family from Ireland, for example. And I feel bad because I'm home with my family who I wanted to come home and see. And I'm like, actually, this would be really fun if this person were here, but they're in another country, you know?
Yeah, I think I don't think I get homesick. I think I do just like miss having my family around.
I don't really like. I got homesick a lot my first year, but now it's few and far between. It's maybe once a year I'll feel like really homesick.
Yeah, I mostly just like want to hug my mom. But like
Yeah,
that's
or
not really
I might
homesick.
miss like something really specific.
Yes. Sometimes I do miss being able to order Dr. Pepper at a restaurant. I have cried about that before, and I will cry about that again, and that's okay.
You know, you're
But
like,
like,
oh, I
as
wish I could go to lunch for this thing, or like, oh, like on my brother's birthday. You know, I might get homesick then.
yeah,
But other than that, like, it's usually the other way
yeah,
around, which
like
is weird.
yeah. No, it's because it's weird, and I don't really think this is how Ailish was feeling, but it's how I feel sometimes. Where like you have like half a life set up here and half a life set up here, and at some point you're gonna have to choose one. But like
For me,
either way is a lot of sacrifice.
and I think it's different for her because I don't think she envisioned not living in Ireland at first. You know what I mean? Whereas, and like she was a little older when she left Ireland. Whereas, like I always say, I left home at 17. So my life in America stopped at high school. So I go back home and like I don't have college friends. I don't have a friends my age that I made that we share interests and stuff. I go home and it's kind of like not getting sucked back into the same pocket, but like anyone who I know, I knew in high school for the most part. Like maybe one or two
Yeah,
friends I've known longer. So like I have a lot, like I have more of an adult, and the person that Kalina is now, my life is in Europe, I will say. So it's weird to go home and you're like, okay, there's these people that know me and these things that are familiar to me and I grew up with, but like this is not my life. And I think it's hard to reconcile those two things.
yeah, and I think it's a little bit different for me because like I'll go home and I'll have a job and like I don't want to say like more of a life because that sounds mean, but like I'll be a little bit more established because I go home for longer periods of time than Kalina does. Um,
Yeah, I
but
go
like yeah,
home and I don't
it's
want to see anyone for a week. And I live, I like live in the house I grew up in. Like, I was born and brought to that house, and that's the only house I've ever lived in. It's
until
weird.
17 when you kicked out and went all the way
Exactly.
across the ocean. um, yeah, I didn't super love how into the Irish boy Ailish seemed to be, but I could understand it because she's still grieving her sister, and
And
didn't love
also,
it.
she didn't look that enthused about getting married. Now, she was married, and she
No,
should have stuck to it. But, like, it didn't really seem like it was a step
well,
she was quite
she
ready
didn't
for.
she didn't cheat on Tony. That's
Well,
important.
no, but, like, I wouldn't even
But she
look at
was
another
definitely getting a
man.
little bit too friendly than she should have been.
If I had a Tony, I would never look at another man ever again for the rest of my life.
I know, dear.
Everyone should know that a 50s Italian man is my dream man. And I was confident, I like suggested this movie to Eleanor, and I was confident she'd watch it and go, oh, yeah,
Oh, I
without me.
100% did. Don't you worry. Um. Anyway, she's hanging
Unrelated,
out.
real quick, unrelated, her friend gets married, and they're at the wedding, and I think her friend Nancy looked absolutely stunning in her little dress, and she had like her little veil with flowers around it. I thought that was very cute. But then I wrote, girl, go home to your husband.
Yeah. And then Ailish meets up with Miss Kelly from the store from the beginning. And she's like, well, I heard some very interesting news, and basically said, I know you're married. And then Ailish is like, oh my goodness, this is what I would be coming back to, or have
Yeah,
come back to, or like,
that's
this is
the
when
that's
I
the day you
left.
wake up and you go, oh my god,
Yeah.
why am I here?
And then she goes home and tells her mom that she is married, and she told her in the worst way possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then like was mad that her mother didn't react well.
Yeah, her mother's like,
Which
I'm
like
going to bed, and Ayla's just like, it's not even 8 p.m. You don't have to. And her mother's like, no, I'm gonna go to bed now.
no,
Goodbye.
yeah. She's like, I would like to say goodbye once.
And never again.
Yeah, which is like you can't really.
If
I
this
don't
movie
know
were
why
about
they didn't talk about her mom just moving with it, because she'll have this whole house that her
Exactly.
little husband will make.
That's my thing. What does her mom have? Like, her mom's alone. Ayla seems to be like
Doesn't have a
she's on
job.
the up. She's making
Hmm.
money. Her husband is planning on making more money and building a little house. Just move your mother in. People do it all the
Yeah.
time.
Her mother's even like, I have nothing to do but reply, have it be an endless back and forth of thank you notes with some lady down the street. And it's like, at least let her be sad in New York where she has her
That's what I
only
was
living
thinking.
family. And I was like, girl. Also, she literally doesn't tell her mother she's married the whole time. At that point, send her a letter. At that
Yeah,
point,
just wait till
if
you
you're
just
gonna
be like,
that
I
much of a
booked the
coward
ticket
about
back
it,
home. Yeah, just be like, I booked the ticket back home, and then as soon as you get home. Also, by the way, may or may not have gotten married before I
BTW.
came home. Blah blah blah. Love you.
Or like
Bye.
leave a letter for her on the kitchen table that morning and be like, I'm gonna
Going
get
home to my
home and then
husband.
that day get married. If you hear anything else that I got married before now, they're lying liars.
No, 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 no. You act like it was totally normal. You'd be like, I'm so sorry I had to leave so quickly, but I had to go home to help my husband. Anyway, I'll talk to you later. Bye. Anyway, if this movie
Yeah,
was about my life and I told my mother I got married and then didn't tell her, I think if I got married in secret and then told everyone right away or told my mom right away, she'd be okay. But if I like kept it a secret and was like seeing her and living with her, I think she would have killed me and then that would have been the
yeah,
end of the movie.
yeah. I did not like how Eilish was like shocked that her mother wasn't happy about it.
Hmm. And like it's different if like her
Especially if she
mother.
like,
If she was in Ireland and got married in secret and it was someone her mother knew, it probably would have been different. But this is someone her mother has no, not even never met,
I
like
remember
has
she had,
no.
her mother like didn't even know she was dating.
Exactly. Cannot even if like fathom that there is a person. Because when she wrote letters back home about Tony, she only wrote to her sister about Tony. She never told her mom.
Mhm.
So her mom doesn't even have like a picture in her head of a boy. Like just that's non-existent in her brain. So that's just a lot
Tony
of
could
information
be
to take.
75 years old for all she knows.
Exactly. Could be the priest.
And she
Okay.
like breaks down and she's like, I'm Eilish, whatever their very Italian
Fiorello.
last name was.
And I said, it took you a little long to get there, but I'm glad you did. Because I feel like she forgot that she
Yeah.
was Eilish. I had to write that one down because it was confusing. Eilish Fiorello.
Fiorelli? Fiorello.
Fiorelli?
Okay.
I wrote O, but also that could have been my phone. I can't spell.
No, it's an O. It's Fiorello. Yeah, like that part I was like, that's okay, Miss Thing. I really hope after the movie they moved her damn mother in.
I hope.
Or
What I
at
want to know is,
least
did she
made
go
the
home
offer.
and did she go home and was like, did she tell him like, oh yeah, so I like remember how we said we weren't gonna tell him when we got married? So then I was like having like a sort of courting with this guy, but like don't worry, we didn't do anything, but I did kind of like him and I did kind of lead him on, but like I love you, and then I remembered that.
Yeah, she's like, don't worry. I remembered I love you when somebody said she was going to tell the whole town that we were married. And then I was like, I am married. Like that's not something you share until you've been married 50 years and you got kids so you can't leave.
So after she has her realization, she like after the Miss Kelly says, oh, I know you're married, she runs and books a ticket to get on the next boat home. So it's like literally the next day. Then she tells her mom she's married and she's going home the next day. And then she gets on the boat, obviously. And I think this comes back to my point about her looking younger and older than she was. I think all of a sudden she just looked very mature, which, and like just like grown up all of a sudden, which I think made sense, obviously. She'd like come to a realization that like home will never be home again, or you can go home but you're not the same, and all that jazz that we wax poetic about all the time. And then she has this nice little like she has this moment where this young Irish girl's asking her questions and she becomes the the equivalent of her roommate when she first went to America, and the young girl is now her, because and the young girl, so she's giving the young girl
And
advice. Mm-hmm.
thankfully, she does tell the young girl not to eat, which
Yes.
is good. I thought that parallel, for some reason, I wasn't really expecting it. Um, so it blew me away probably a little bit more than it should have, but I really liked that. I think I was just so mad about the mom thing that I forgot about the
Yeah.
first part of the movie.
Yeah, I had a hard
But
time getting
I
into
thought that was a really nice little.
the Eilish being home in Ireland bit, because I was just annoyed with her for most of it.
Yeah.
But I think she had a nice little, like, she gave good advice, and it was another little voiceover kind of moment. And one thing she says is, "You'll feel so homesick, you'll want to die, and there's nothing you can do except endure it," which sounds like harsh advice, but it's true. And it's kind of like, when you feel like that, again, no one who has, you can't explain that feeling to someone who hasn't felt it. And
Mm-hmm.
so you just got to rely on yourself, especially when you're going to live on your own in a new country. But that last scene in this movie is, I think, one of my favorite scenes in any movie I have ever seen in my life. I think about it occasionally, and it's just not just because I love Tony and her, but I just think it's filmed beautifully. I think it ends the movie very nicely. I think the emotions are all just very well portrayed and balanced, and it's just gorgeous. And I'll let Eleanor talk about it before I wax any more poetic.
No, please.
So basically, she booked her ticket to come home very quickly, so she doesn't tell him she's coming home. And the last scene, this is still the voiceover of her giving advice to the young girl, and she's talking about how you're going to be homesick and lonely and everything might seem awful. And she's standing on the street, and then the sun is like cast across her face, and in the voiceover she goes, "And one day the sun will come out." And then she says something about, like, you might not even notice, but she's standing on the sidewalk across the street from this bakery, and the sun's across her face, and then her husband and his brother come out of the bakery because they were working in it, I guess. And then you see the moment he, like, sees her waiting for him across the street, and he, like, hands his tools off to his brother, and he runs across the street, and they just look at each other for a moment, and then they hug. But I think he's also a phenomenal actor. You can just kind of see every thought and emotion across his face in that moment, and then they hug, and she's still giving her little voiceover.
Yeah,
And
she's
then I get a
talking
little
about
weepy.
how, like, at some point you'll find someone or something that is just wholly yours, and you'll be able to, like, yeah, it's very, very sweet. And yes, I am very sad that someone Irish hasn't fallen in love with me like that, because
My
I'm
dad's
here.
25% Irish, and I am in love with you in every way that counts except for romantic. Does that work?
Um, no, because you don't have somewhere in Ireland for me to move into. Like, that's kind of, it's
Oh.
not the top of my list, but like
I'm
it's kind
working
of on
on
there.
that. Well, I could be working on that.
Um, you know, you're also missing the accent. You know, like the Florida accent doesn't do it
I
for
can work on that
me.
too.
Okay.
Well, actually,
Well, I
right
mean,
now I have a really weird, it's probably, like, I got a mix of an American, Irish, Ukrainian, Slovakian accent is what's, Cuban accent, because I just speak, everyone I speak English to right now doesn't really speak English, and I forget how to say words. Instead of Cuba, I've been saying Cuba a lot, and I catch myself also. I don't say my THs. Do you do that? I can't say the word
no.
the.
When I was telling my mother you were in Cuba, I stopped saying Cuba. And I'm like, why am I doing that? And now I think it's your fault.
Oh yeah, it's my fault. Because it's not, because that's how they say it in Slovak, I guess. So it's Cuba. Like when I. Anyway, and then I don't say my THs. I've caught myself a couple times talking to my mom, and I'll be like, "Oh yeah, the team," and then I'm like, "No, no, no, the theme," or I'll say "ting" instead of "thing," which is partly Irish and partly Jamaican. And then also, I know I did this to Eleanor purely because I think it's funny. My dad says "teef" instead of "thief." So when I was with
And now
Eleanor, I
I
used to say, "Oh
can't
yeah, I'm gonna teach
stop.
something," and now Eleanor does it, and it's my
I
favorite thing in the
say
world.
it all the time. It's so fun. Oh, also, just like a real quick little side plot about this movie. There's one scene where Ailish is in the bathroom, and one of the girls in the boarding house comes up, and she's like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't know you were in there." And then the girl just gets some random 2-second backstory about how her husband left her for another woman. And it's
Yeah,
like,
they said it like they had touched on it before, so I'm wondering if it was like something that got cut out because Ailish is like this is after Tony says I love you and Ailish doesn't say I love you back. She says, "I had a lovely evening. I'll see you later. Bye." Basically. And so she's in the bathroom and she asks the girl, she goes, "Why aren't you married?" Right? And the lady goes, "Oh yeah, because I was married and my husband left me for someone else." And Ailish is like, "Oh, sorry."
do you want to do it again? And she's like, no, I want to spend my whole day getting interrupted in the bathroom by girls in a boarding house. And it's like, girl, we already don't like you.
Actually, I think this is back to a point we were making before because she says how, and then after that she gets a little nicer and she's like, "No, I want to, I want to get married one day and have a home and argue with my husband who's got a bad temper and blah blah blah." And then she's like, when I'm married, I'll probably wish I was back here in the boarding house with you." And kind of that again, that idea of homesickness is your home and you're like, "Oh man, I wish I never came back." And then you leave and you're like, "Why did I ever leave home?" Anyway, we've been waxing poetic for a little too long.
Oh, also, just real quick, I had a very hard time keeping track of like exactly how much time had passed because
Yes.
in the situation where Ailish was like, when Tony said that he loved her, Ailish was like, I don't know. But then it seems like the next day she was like, "I love you now." But I feel like it
Yeah.
wasn't just a day. She also had time to pass her whole night school course, and I don't know how long that is.
I was confused about like how many dates they had been on up to the point he said I love you, but I do think her coming to that conclusion wasn't too long because remember he used to wait for her after class and he was late that day and she thought because she hadn't said I love you he wouldn't come. So I have to imagine it was probably like a couple of days like over the weekend or something. But then they keep talking about how she survived her first winter, and so I wasn't sure if it had been like she had survived her first winter and then it had been a year and this was the next winter, or if it just been like it was like springtime now or something.
Yeah, it was a little bit hard to keep track of.
And then like I think she was supposed to be in Ireland for a month, but then everything kept getting extended, and like I don't know how long between her sister dying and her deciding to go. Like that was a bit confusing.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, beautiful film.
Other
I would
than that,
recommend it to everybody.
10 out of 10. Would recommend it.
I think it focuses on culture and like without being too in your face, especially because I think everyone inhabits their own little pockets. So like it's Irish without being too. It's not like a film about being Irish, but it's got those elements. But I think it's something anyone who has left their home or has like sort of those something along those lines could relate to.
Yeah. Also, Saoirse Ronan is very, very pretty.
And if you want to marry a 50s Italian man, even though it is just logistically impossible for you, maybe don't watch the film because then you're going to be sad. I'm not speaking from personal experience.
You could definitely still marry somebody who was Italian in the 1950s. Not the exact same, but you know.
Anyway, this has been Don't Quote Me on That. We are your favorite podcast hosts. Maybe not your favorite podcast, but we're definitely your favorite hosts. This has been Don't Quote Me on That. Thank you for tuning in. Next holiday, I think, is 4th of July. And neither of us are in a country that celebrates that, but we'll figure something out. And in between,
Easter.
Who knows? Have any thoughts?
We might actually... no. Well, yes, but not productive ones.
I have been Kalina. That has been Elanor. I've taken away her talking privileges. And we will see you next week. Thanks for listening. Don't quote me on that. One day we'll have an outro, but it's not today.